Welcome, and here we go again. And today I'll be doing something a little bit different. Now, over the next few weeks, I will be covering some other shows as well as Doctor Who. And today I'm going to start off that with Better Call Saul, which is the Breaking Bad spin-off show. And it's going to be the only video I'm going to do of that show. But today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on Series 5, now it's finished, and how I think the show's going to end. Now, hopefully, that'll be interesting for you. I'll be covering things like Westworld and The Mandalorian and other things that I've been watching when they're done with their current series and when I can talk about them. And there'll be other shows which I cover later on. But I'll start by saying Better Call Saul Series 5 is the best season of the show yet, I'd say. It is quite a slow show, a very slow show at the start. It's something that develops over time in a similar way to how Breaking Bad does. But I think Better Call Saul Series 5, we've reached that point where the worlds of Better Call Saul are starting to cross over with the worlds we saw in Breaking Bad, which is really interesting. We've got to a very interesting point in the show. All the characters are in great danger. All the stuff that's been set up in the last 5 series has come to a head or is about to come to a head in the final series. And it makes that setup worth it. Now, I think there were many moments which stood out in the past series. I think all the cast gave stellar performances. I thought the actress who plays Kim was great in this series, and a character that I grow to like more and more every episode, and her performance continues to improve every episode. Of course, Bob Odenkirk is great as Saul, and has some funny moments, but also some nice, serious moments. Mike, his actor, is great. The villain of the series, Lalo, is brilliant. He's really menacing and badass and quite cool. And the sort of other Salamanca. But it's a very good cast, and it's written very well by Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould and the other people who write it. What were my highlights of the series? Well, first of all, it was lovely to see Hank and Gomi back in the first episode, in the third and fourth episode even, of the series. Both of them are characters I grew to love in Breaking Bad. I think Hank is arguably my favourite character in the Mother show. And yeah, it was lovely to see them back. A lovely piece of nostalgia, them rolling up in the car and sort of see their orange uniforms. It's a really nice moment. I was very excited when I heard that they would be in it. And I hope that we'll see them again in the final series. I think there's opportunity for them to appear in the final series. Because we saw them and it set up the whole Crazy 8 plot that we saw in the show. So they don't have to be in it again, but it would be nice to see them back again, as it was lovely to see them back. And they're also some of the last major characters from Breaking Bad that haven't appeared in the show. So that was good. Wexler versus Goodman as an episode was great. It featured some brilliant confrontation scenes. It showed how Saul getting his revenge on everyone who had wronged him over the years, and it was a really good sort of resolution to a lot of the plots that have been going on for many seasons with Howard and the people at Kim's law office and everything, and those who have been trying to stop him for a long time. So it was a really interesting resolution of those arcs, and particularly the scene where he's sort of blackmailing everyone. It's great, and a really interesting moment, which shows off just how dark the character of Saul has become. The Bagman shootout in episode 8 is great. A really explosive moment, a really punch the air moment when Mike saves Saul from the shooters. And it's set up for some really interesting confrontations and scenes in the final 3 episodes of the series. And just Bagman in general, the best episode of the show. It's great that we got to see Mike and Saul sort of alone trying to escape from loads of people after their money and hunted down in the desert. It was a really explosive and fun and exciting and gripping episode, really. And it felt like that was the point where we really got to that sort of Breaking Bad feel to the show, which there'd been elements of that before, but it was the first time where there was an episode which truly felt like it belonged within Breaking Bad. There'd been great episodes beforehand, but they felt great in a different respect. And then the final one is the scene in episode 9 at the end when Lalo confronts Saul and Kim, and it's a really tense sequence. You've got Mike aiming a gun at them and Lalo in the house, and it's a really tense, gripping scene with them all watching over each other, and you've got that really interesting sort of double cross nature between Nacho and stuff. So it's really interesting. I think also an honourable mention to the way that we leave it at the end of the series. We're going to have to wait 2 years or something to find out what happens next, but it's great that Lalo knows that he's being sort of betrayed now, and I think that's going to set up for some really explosive stuff as it goes on. So my coverage here is to talk about how I think it will end. Well, first of all, I don't see either Nacho or Lalo surviving the series. I think they'll die. There's a scene in Better Call Saul, the first episode, the 9th episode of Series 2 of Breaking Bad, the first one where Saul makes his appearance. And he states, "It wasn't me, it was Ignacio. Did Lalo send you?" And it's a really interesting scene. I think they built these two characters around them, around that line, and it's really interesting. I think that sort of signifies that Lalo's still alive and Saul's been blamed for Nacho's actions, which I think we've got to that point because Lalo knows that Nacho has been working with Gus and Mike, and he's after him, and Nacho's in great danger. But I think that signifies that when we meet Saul, Lalo Salamanca is still alive, which suggests that maybe by the end of Better Call Saul, by the end of Breaking Bad, as we didn't see Lalo in the show, maybe he's still out there, and maybe the last of the Salamancas is alive, which means that potentially Better Call Saul could cross over with Breaking Bad in its final episodes and sort of see Mike and stuff phased out of the show, and we get to see some of Saul's life outside of the events of Breaking Bad, because potentially there was stuff that went on in his outside of his life whilst he was working with Walt and Jesse, because we didn't see much of that. So it'd be really interesting if the shows did cross over in terms of their timeline, even though it would be a bit complicated. But I don't know whether that will happen. I think Lalo will survive. It's just I think Lalo will die at some point during the show. It just depends whether maybe the gene sequences will see Lalo return and get his revenge on Gene after he learns about everything that's been happening, which would be a really interesting sequence. And after he learns that Mike was there at the shootout. Howard, we're going to see Howard probably maybe arrested for whatever Kim frames him for, because the last thing we saw in Series 5 was that Saul and Kim are going to frame Howard for some sort of crime, whether that be some law thing or whether that be something like misconduct. So that's going to be a really interesting plot and a really interesting conclusion to the Howard arc that's been running through the whole show, I think. So I think there's also Saul's sort of grief over Chuck, and it's going to be really interesting to see where that goes, and his blame for Howard, and Kim's turn to the dark side, really, and just how far that will go. Now, I don't think Howard's law firm will survive in Series 6. I think it will be destroyed somehow, whether that be because he's framed or whether that be because, well, he just loses it all. But I also think Kim may get arrested if she's caught out for framing Howard for these actions. There are many ways Kim could go out, and I think the biggest question on Better Call Saul is what's going to happen to Kim. It's pretty obvious that Nacho and Layla are going to die at some point. It's pretty obvious Howard's fate isn't as important, but Kim, she's never mentioned in Breaking Bad, and she never appears in Breaking Bad, so that makes everyone think Kim dies. But could it be that Kim's arrested? Could it be that Saul has to send Kim to a safe house when Laylo and the Salamancas come after him? Could Kim die after all? Now she's in the game, if you like. So that's going to be really interesting. Whether Kim will survive, I don't know. I'm getting more and more worried about her because I think she's in a danger zone, and I think it would make sense if she died. So yeah, I don't see Kim surviving. I don't see Kim getting a happy ending. So also the Gene stuff, that's how I'm going to resolve the video. I can see the show ending with the Gene scene. Obviously we're going to get a black and white sequence at the beginning of Series 6 like we always do, but we're probably going to get a scene at the end of the show, if not the last episode in its entirety. I'm reckoning will be a black and white sequence with Gene, and we get to see his life now, and maybe get to resolve everything in terms of if Kim's still alive, maybe he goes to see her, or if Laylo's alive, maybe he goes to get his revenge, or maybe Saul tries to return to his normal life, or maybe that person we saw in the Series 5 opening scene is revealed to be coming after Saul. We have no idea what could happen, but I think the show will end with Gene as it began with Gene. So I think we're going to get a resolution to all 3 chapters of Saul's life. Jimmy, Saul, and Gene in the Series 6. So I think Series 6 is going to be very explosive. We've got a lot going on. We've got 2 major plots that we know of. We've got Kim and Saul's attempts to frame Howard. And we've got the whole cartel war and Laylo coming after Nacho, and Gus and Mike sort of going against Laylo, and everything that's going to happen there. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in both plot lines and to all characters involved. We know Saul and Mike will survive, and Gus until they die. And we know Saul's going to become Gene. So we also have the question of, will Saul survive the future? So, a lot of questions to be answered. I cannot wait for Series 6 to come out, but it's going to be a long time. So, if you've watched the show, please leave your thoughts of how you think the show's going to end and what you think is going to happen to all the characters in the comments below. And tomorrow, what am I doing tomorrow? I'm going to be taking a look back at Class and why that spin-off didn't work. So, let's go tomorrow. See you there. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.